Wake-up time is a first-hand observation of the situation in the remote Aboriginal communities of Central Australia, and in addition it's an investigation into the causes of why these situations are so deplorable and subhuman. So it's a combination of investigation and observation. The main inspiration was actually Timothy, a young boy in the remote community of Willaura in the Tanami Deserts, 350 kilometers northwest of Alice Springs. I was invited to give a talk about astronomy to the local primary school, and now being so remote, when you arrive there as a stranger, you're really an alien, and all the kids are excited because they see someone else, and that question is always, that's how kids respond all over the world. What's your name? What's my name? Etc. Not Timothy. He was just following me like a little duckling, and not a little duckling because he was 13 or 14 years old and actually pretty big. He was just following me, and finally I sat down, and his first question was not what my name was, but he asked me, "Can you tell me what a black hole is?" And I realized at that moment that this kid, he was already beyond primary school age. He would never discover what a black hole is, simply because he lives in a place that is so remote where he doesn't have any opportunities to follow his dreams and become an astronomer or become a photographer. There's no way he will ever get there. That incident triggered me to really write about this. What is going on that we let kids down in these communities not to follow their dreams? And most likely it's now 1.5 years later, he's already a father and probably has a kid, and that's the rest of his life. And I found that so poor. That was the drive to write this book. I investigated 5 aspects of Aboriginal life in Central Australia, because we normally always look into the cultural thing and then think that it's pretty nice, but it is not nice, it's nasty, it's terrible. And one of the things I discovered in Willaura, the first town I went to in Alice Springs, where I went for to investigate sit-down money, the social security system, in Uluru about tourism, Eli Kurang, another remote community, to look into indigenous art, and finally in Kakadu to look into the environmental relationship with the Aboriginal people. In all these cases, I came across a huge amount of money that is available. So it's not too little, there's too much money available to these communities. The money is sitting in all kinds of corporations, it's funded by the mines, it's with involvement of the state and federal government. And that causes the problems. It doesn't solve them, it causes and maintains the problems. That was the main finding in all these locations. After going to Willaura, I went to these other 4 locations which I just mentioned, and it took me altogether about half a year of observations and going to these communities, talking to people, and about half a year, including the first half year, actually in addition to the first half year, to do the investigation. I've read dozens of annual reports of land councils, of shire councils, of the mining industry, all of that. Altogether that process took about a year to come to a first manuscript. A full-time a year. Yeah, I think so. It's not preventable, of course, because it's simply there. But there are solutions. But the solutions require that we first and for all overhaul this funding system, which I mentioned, which I call in the book the royalties maze. It's all coming from the mines originally, but it has involvement of governments, and it also has involvement of the Aboriginal people themselves. They also maintain the system. If we are not prepared to mention and acknowledge exactly what is there, we will never solve it. We need to acknowledge it, state that there's too much money that is uncontrolled and not delivering any positive outcome. And if we do that and we stop making a distinction between Aboriginal people and the rest of Australia, then there is definitely a solution for this. But it's not easy. The money from the royalties maize, the money coming from the mines, goes through several ways. It goes through the federal government. They have a special Aboriginal account, which at the moment has over $2 billion. It goes back to the land councils, which are the overall bureaucratic body of these communities. And then finally it trickles down through this to all kinds of other Aboriginal organizations and corporations. And by the time that it reaches the ground, there's hardly any left. So people in these communities just have money enough not to die, but it's not much more. And the rest just sits in these corporations. I mentioned in my book corporations that have really no other goal than to just collect money. And there's easily $40 million sitting in a corporation that is only meant for one tiny community. And the money is sitting there doing nothing, and just enough money comes out to keep these people alive and they don't revolt, but they normally would do, I think. I just want to see a discussion happen. We living in Australia for 15 years, I've realized when we talk about Aboriginal people, we talk in cliches. We are very cautious to make critical remarks, and we just talk about the beautiful paintings and the didgeridoo and all of that. But there's more to the Aboriginal topic than that, and I like to contribute to the discussion about the social aspects of people living in these remote communities, because I think it's unacceptable to have people in a wealthy country, a lovely, wealthy, beautiful country like Australia, living under those conditions. It should not be there. And I like to contribute with the book to that discussion. I got a response from the Prime Minister's office, from Tony Abbott. He really endorsed the book in the sense that he considers it a very valuable document that really presents the situation as it is in a journalistic way. Alan Jones calls it a fantastic document for the same reasons. I've got responses from people working in the field. They even have contributed to the book, teachers and others working in these communities, and they're happy with the fact that the facts come out. If you're passionate about Australia and our country and the people living here, and you want them all to have a good life, then also be critical about the circumstances under which people live in Central Australia, especially in relation to the recognition movement that is starting up at the moment and will lead to a change of the Constitution in 2017. Wake Up Time will definitely give you a lot of insight to make up your own mind about that topic.